My girlfriend mocked. He thinks he's smart, but I'm with a real man. I smiled, closed the tab, and packed my bag. That same night, I sent screenshots to her family group chat. By morning, her calls went to voicemail while my new girl opened the door. I, Leo 31 male, had been with Chloe 30 for 6 years. We lived a life of sun-drenched illusion in La Jolla, San Diego. I was a computational biologist, working on my post-doc at a university research lab, making a modest $90,000 a year. It was a job I loved, a job I believed in. Chloe was a luxury real estate agent, and on paper, she made about $120,000 a year. But her income was a roller coaster of commissions. We lived in a sleek, minimalist apartment with an ocean view that we absolutely could not afford, a fact that was a constant, unspoken tension in our lives. Our social circle was entirely hers. It was a collection of high-pressure salespeople, trust fund kids, and entrepreneurs who had made their money fast. Conversations were a competitive sport about sales figures, new cars, and exotic vacations. I, the quiet academic, was a novelty at best, a charity case at worst. I was Chloe's smart but poor boyfriend, a pet project she seemed to enjoy showing off and complaining about in equal measure. I tolerated it because I thought I loved her. 2 months ago, my entire world shifted. A biotech startup, built on the back of the genetic sequencing algorithm I had developed during my PhD, secured a massive $50 million Series A funding round. The investors, a major Silicon Valley venture capital firm, made me an offer that felt like a dream. They wanted me to come on board not just as an employee, but as a co-founder and the chief scientific officer. The salary was $350,000 a year. More importantly, it came with a 10% equity stake in the company. It was the culmination of a decade of relentless, focused work. I told Chloe over what I thought would be a celebratory dinner. I laid out the offer, the salary, the equity, the chance to build something truly revolutionary from the ground up, right here in San Diego. Her face was a mask of disappointment. A startup, she said, her tone dripping with disdain. That sounds risky, Leo. It's not a real company. It's backed by one of the biggest VCs in the world. I explained, my excitement deflating. You'll be working 100 hours a week. She continued. We'll never see our friends. You'll be locked in a lab. This is a chance to change medicine, Chloe. She laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. Don't be so dramatic. My friends' husbands are becoming partners at their firms. They have stable jobs. You want to gamble our future on some nerdy science project. The conversation ended there. She had made her verdict clear. My dream was an inconvenience to her lifestyle. But the final, fatal wound wouldn't come from her words to me, but from the words she typed to someone else. Update 1: I accepted the CSO position the next day. I felt a surge of defiance as I emailed the signed offer letter. I told the CEO I would be ready to start in 3 weeks. A weight I didn't even know I was carrying lifted off my shoulders. I was choosing my own path. At home, I didn't mention it again. I let Chloe believe she had successfully squashed my unrealistic ambition. She was smug, convinced she had saved me from myself. Anytime I seemed too quiet or thoughtful, she would mistake it for pouting. Don't worry, she'd say, patting my arm. You'll thank me one day when we have a stable life. Her friends were even worse. They treated me with a new level of condescending pity. Heard you decided to stay with the university. One of them said at a pool party. Probably for the best. The real world is tough. They praised Chloe for being the practical one in the relationship. Behind this wall of smug dismissal, I moved with methodical precision. I opened a new set of bank accounts. I consulted with a lawyer who specialized in startup equity to make sure my founder's shares were protected. I started quietly selling off personal assets I had acquired before our relationship, including a small portfolio of tech stocks. The $60,000 I made went straight into my new, private account. I began searching for a new place to live, not in the flashy world of La Jolla, but further up the coast in Encinitas, a laid-back surf town that felt more like me. I was not just planning a career change, I was planning a complete extraction from a life that was slowly suffocating me. Update 2. The end came on a quiet Tuesday night. Chloe was out at a client dinner. I was working on our shared home computer when a chat notification popped up on the screen. It was a name I didn't recognize. She had left her account logged in. Curiosity, or perhaps a deep-seated instinct, made me click on it. The conversation history was right there. It was with one of her wealthy clients, a man who owned a string of car dealerships. The messages were flirtatious and demeaning. They talked about me. I scrolled up and found the line that stopped my heart. It was her, from just an hour before. That was the moment 6 years of my life evaporated. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I smiled a cold, empty smile, closed the chat window, and took a series of crystal clear screenshots. Then, I went to our bedroom and packed a single bag. I drove to a hotel and checked in. From the sterile quiet of the room, I executed my plan. I created a new group chat on my phone. I added Chloe, her parents, and her 2 older brothers. I dropped the screenshots into the chat without a single word of explanation. The images of her mocking me, of her discussing her affair, were stark and undeniable. Then, I turned off my phone. My truth had been told. I didn't need to say another word. Update 3. I slept for 10 hours, a deep, dreamless sleep of pure exhaustion and release. When I turned my phone on the next morning, it was a war zone. Dozens of missed calls. A torrent of texts. Chloe's were a chaotic mix of fury, denial, and pathetic begging. Her brothers were demanding answers. Her father had sent a single, ominous message, "Call me." I ignored them all. I forwarded my number to a new voicemail service and deleted the threads. I had already arranged for a moving company. I met them at the apartment. Chloe's car was gone. She was likely at a friend's house, trying to manage the fallout. The movers were incredibly efficient. They packed my half of the life we had built. My books, my research papers, my surfboard, my clothes. Everything that defined me was separated from the life that had tried to erase me. I left my key on the empty kitchen counter. I didn't leave a note. I drove up the coast to Encinitas, where the startup had arranged a temporary corporate apartment for me. It was a modern loft space with a huge balcony that overlooked the ocean. The air smelled of salt and possibility. My first day as chief scientific officer was a baptism by fire. I was in back-to-back meetings with investors, lab technicians, and software engineers. My ideas weren't just heard, they were sought after. My intelligence wasn't a quirky trait, it was the company's most valuable asset. For the first time, I felt like I was in a room full of my peers. I was not just a biologist, I was a founder, a leader, a builder. I was home. Update 4. The next 6 months were the most challenging and rewarding of my life. I worked 80-hour weeks, fueled by coffee and a sense of purpose I had never known. We were building a company that had the potential to revolutionize personalized medicine. Outside of work, I was building a new life. I bought a new surfboard and was in the water at sunrise every morning. I found a local gym and started training seriously. The physical exertion was a perfect balance to the intense mental work. I made friends with my neighbors, a mix of artists, surfers, and fellow tech entrepreneurs. My life was no longer about being seen at the right places. It was about living authentically. My first equity tranche vested, and on paper, my net worth jumped into the 7 figures. I used my new salary and a small loan against my shares to buy a house. It was a modern, 3-bedroom home in Encinitas with a rooftop deck that had a 180-degree view of the Pacific. It was my sanctuary. Chloe's family reached out sporadically. Her mother sent a long, tearful email apologizing for her daughter's behavior. Her father called and offered a gruff, formal apology. I was polite but distant. I learned from a mutual acquaintance that Chloe's life had imploded. Her affair partner had immediately dropped her when the scandal broke. Her parents, furious and embarrassed, had cut her off financially for the first time in her life. She had lost the La Jolla apartment, and her friends had vanished. Update 5. Our startup hit a major milestone 8 months in. Our algorithm successfully identified a novel biomarker for early-stage pancreatic cancer. The news was huge. We were featured in TechCrunch, Forbes, and several major biotech journals. The articles included a profile of the founding team, with a professional photo of me, Dr. Leo Vance, Chief Scientific Officer. The digital world exploded. Chloe found the articles. Her first email arrived at 2:00 a.m., CSO, Dr. Leo Vance. It read, "I saw the Forbes article. I didn't know the company was this big. I am so incredibly proud of you, Leo. I always knew you were a genius. I made a terrible, terrible mistake. A relentless barrage of texts from new numbers and DMs from new Instagram accounts followed. She was sorry. She loved me. Her life was nothing without me. She had changed. She was in therapy. It was a pathetic, transparent attempt to claw her way back to the success she had once mocked. Old friends from her circle also sent me messages, congratulating me, asking to catch up. I ignored every single one. Update 6. One Saturday afternoon, the doorbell at my new house rang. I was in a meeting with Eva Rostova, our brilliant and fiercely intelligent chief operating officer. We were mapping out our next phase of clinical trials. I checked the security camera feed on my phone. My stomach tightened. It was Chloe. I opened the door. She stood on my porch, looking smaller and less polished than I remembered. The designer clothes were gone. "Leo," she said, her voice shaking. "We need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about, Chloe," I said, my voice flat. "Please," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "I was wrong. I was a fool. I love you. I can move up here. We can start over." "You don't love me," I said, my voice cold and hard. "You love the idea of my equity. You didn't want a scientist. You want a CSO. You didn't want a partner. You wanted a provider." "That's not true," she sobbed. "I remember your words," I said. "He thinks he's smart, but I'm with a real man. You made your choice. A real man with car dealerships. How did that work out for you?" Just then, Eva came to the door, holding a tablet. "Leo, sorry to interrupt, but the simulations from the lab just came through," she said, her focus entirely on the screen. She didn't even seem to notice Chloe. Chloe's eyes darted from me to Eva, a woman who radiated a confidence and intelligence that Chloe had always tried to imitate. The fight went out of her. She saw, in that single moment, that her role in my life had not just been vacated, but had been filled by someone who was my equal in every way. She whispered, "I see," turned, and walked away. Update 7. Chloe's final, desperate act was a legal one. She hired a lawyer and filed a lawsuit, claiming domestic partnership. She alleged that my sequencing algorithm was developed while we were together, and that her emotional and domestic support entitled her to a percentage of my founder's equity. My company's legal team, the best in California, found the claim laughably absurd. They filed a motion to dismiss, which included sworn affidavits from my former university colleagues, detailing my years of solitary work. They also included a selection of the screenshots I had saved, proving her support was, in fact, mockery and infidelity. The judge threw the case out and sanctioned her lawyer for filing a frivolous lawsuit. Her attempt at a social media smear campaign was even more disastrous. She posted a long, vague story on Facebook about being a woman scorned by a man who chose money over love. It backfired spectacularly. Her own brother commented on the post, "Chloe, stop lying. Everyone has seen the screenshots. This is embarrassing." The post and her entire profile were deleted within an hour. Update a year later. My life was beyond anything I could have imagined. The startup had gone through a second round of funding, and our valuation was now close to $500 million. My paper net worth was astronomical, but more importantly, our work was on the verge of saving lives. My salary had been increased to $450,000. Eva and I were now a couple. Our relationship had grown organically from a foundation of mutual respect and shared passion. We were a team in the lab and a team in life. We bought a piece of land together overlooking the ocean, and we were designing our own home. I received one final, short email from Chloe. "I am leaving California," it said. "I get it now. I'm sorry for everything. You deserved better. I hope you and Dr. Rostova are happy." It was the first time she had acknowledged Eva by her proper title. It was a sign of final, absolute defeat. I replied with a single sentence, "I wish you peace." Then I blocked her address for good. Final update. Last month, I was the keynote speaker at a major biotech conference. After my talk, a distinguished-looking man in his 60s approached me. It was Chloe's father. I hadn't seen him since before the breakup. He shook my hand, his grip firm. "Dr. Vance," he said, using my formal title. "That was a remarkable presentation. Your work is going to change the world." He paused, and his expression softened. "I also wanted to apologize. As a father, We gave our daughter every material advantage, but we failed to teach her about character. We taught her to value the wrong things. I am profoundly sorry for the way she treated you." His words, offered with such humility, provided a final, unexpected layer of closure. The lesson from this entire painful chapter was clear. Never allow someone who is fundamentally insecure to project their limitations onto you. Do not trim your sails to fit their small harbor. The right partner will not be intimidated by your intelligence or your ambition, they will be inspired by it. They will want to build a bigger, better world with you. That night, as Eva and I sat on the rooftop deck of my house, watching the stars come out over the dark expanse of the Pacific, I felt a deep and abiding sense of peace. I had been betrayed, mocked, and dismissed. But I had taken that pain and used it as fuel. I had walked away from a life that was a beautiful lie, and built a new one that was a messy, challenging, and profoundly beautiful truth, and I was finally, truly, myself.